Finally, ahoy everyone. Welcome to the Medical Futurist live Q&A session here on YouTube. My name is Dr. Meskó. I'm your Medical Futurist, and let me welcome you in the name of the Medical Futurist team. We haven't seen each other for quite a long time, since like June. And you can imagine that we have spent the summer analyzing, discovering things, reading about, writing about generative AI, one of the most exciting topics. I'm not saying all the time, but definitely of the recent years. And that's why we dedicate this whole session, this whole Q&A live session to describing generative AI. It's what it is, what kind of popular tools are using generative AI already, how we can imagine its use in healthcare and medicine, what we can expect from the next couple of years, all these amazing and exciting things. So that's what the session is going to be about. Hopefully you can see me and hear me well enough, like usual. It's great to see some names on the chat. I usually see on these channels. Before we start, I need to ask for your help because I need to understand and get a picture about how much you think you know about generative AI, not artificial intelligence in general, but specifically generative AI. So if you could just for a second leave a comment and a number in the comment, meaning 1 means you have no idea what generative AI is or means, and 10 meaning that you have a complete control over all the concepts, the aspects, the knowledge, everything that's related to generative AI. That range, of course, would help me better understand how to talk about this topic, how to address these issues. So please just write a number between 1 and 10. Again, 1 meaning you have no idea about this thing, and 10 meaning you are quite good at prompt engineering, at understanding the technical details of generative AI, and all these. In the meantime, welcome everyone from Mexico, from Pakistan, from Ohio in the US. Ricardo, thank you for the question. I saw your question on the Eventbrite website too, and I will definitely address that among the first ones. So let's the numbers 58865, quite in the middle, but on the second side, the second half of the knowledge spectrum. Hi Andre, it's good to see you here. 538173, and welcome from Nigeria, from France, from the US. I'm very excited about this session because just through the Eventbrite website, I received over 60 questions. Not questions like, what is it, but really thoughtful, insightful questions. And if I just go through half of them, then we would have quite a rich session, but I'm here for a live Q&A session. So please feel free to ask questions in the live session. I will do my best, my absolute best, to answer as many questions as I can. The reason why we are doing this session right now is twofold. One, in the last couple of weeks, actually just less than a month ago, we published our executive summary about generative AI on leanpub.com, the place we usually use to publish our executive analysis. And about a week ago, a bit more than a week ago, we published our first survey on generative AI, which is for free. You can download it for free and check out what 400 healthcare leaders thought about generative AI using ChatGPT for medical purposes, prompt engineering. And just a few more updates. During the summer, I published a paper about prompt engineering being an essential emerging skill for medical professionals. We are working on the multimodal aspects of large language models. I will talk about all these things one by one. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for sharing the numbers. It's quite the range between 1 and 10, but the vast majority of you were in the between 5 and 8 range. So I get that. You have a good idea about what generative AI is. So we will keep on focusing on the specific questions. And let's start with the one that our very first commenter today, Coxy AI, asked a question I won't be able to answer simply because I don't have the access to all these tools yet. So how do Binchar, Google Bard, Tropic 2, OpenAI, ChatGPT, all these generative AI large language models compare in generating a differential diagnosis based on symptoms? But it's a very good question for many reasons. One, this question helps me articulate that only those generative AI models could be compared making differential diagnostic decisions that were trained on medical data. And I think at least 3 of these were not trained on medical data, but on general data. And I still review as a researcher, and it's part of my job to review studies week by week. And I come across many studies now comparing generative AI chatbots trained on medical data, and those chatbots can indeed be comparable or be compared. But about BARD and all these, it doesn't make any sense from a scientific perspective to compare it to medical models, because medical models, of course, will perform at a much more efficient level. So what we can do now is that we have to wait for medical large language models to come out, like MedPom2, the one from Google and DeepMind, that was trained on medical databases, and that will be able to support or contribute to differential diagnosis for medical professionals. I guess the next 1 or 2 years will be about seeing these medical large language models coming out, and then those will be compared, have no doubts about that. All right, Divya Markande had this question, a very good question to start with, What is generative AI and what are large language models? Well, let's start at the beginning. Just for a second, I'm trying to be insightful here for you with interactive things. So artificial intelligence is intelligence demonstrated by machines. If it's a software, an algorithm, a computer program doing that, meaning that it would be able to demonstrate a sort of intelligence that we human beings would mark as a sign of intelligence, or whether it's a physical actuator, but of course it's still the algorithm making those decisions, it will be called artificial intelligence. We know that today we only have artificial narrow intelligence, the first level of AI according to the range of Nick Bostrom that he described in his book Superintelligence, in which artificial narrow intelligence means the AI can perform at very well-defined single tasks, but with zero IQ. And maybe the next version's iteration somewhere in the future could be about artificial general intelligence and superintelligence. What matters for us is artificial general intelligence, the second level. That could mean an AI has our unique individual cognitive capacity. And the way generative AI is different from these is that generative AI is a new subcategory of general artificial intelligence, and it refers to algorithms that can look for patterns and structures in the sample data and then create something new based on it. So essentially, it is creating something new. It's creative from the human perspective, but what it does is just that it looks for patterns and structures in huge amounts of data. Think about billions of pictures and photos. And then based on the textual briefs or prompts we can provide, it will try to create something similar, same but different. That's how generative AI is different from the general AI we have been having for decades. And large language models represent a subcategory within generative AI. And these are models that were trained on human text, basically human discussions, but on a textual basis. Billions and billions of discussions and written descriptions on websites, from Wikipedia to sort of databases and books uploaded to digital databases. And then it is large language models like ChatGPT work through a process called tokenization. It uses tokens. So it doesn't understand the text you are asking a question in the way you are asking a question, but it divides the question into tokens. A token can be a full word, a syllable, a half word, whether it's understandable or not. And what large language models really do as a form of AI is that they can really efficiently predict the sequence of tokens in the output. Essentially, the text that you will like as an answer, that you will find useful as an answer. So they just predict the sequence of tokens, but they don't generally or fundamentally understand what they are talking about. But in that, they are incredibly efficient. I'm sure you've been using ChatGPT yourself for many months now. It's really incredibly efficient at doing these predictions. All right. Ricardo de Hoyos also asked this question live and on the Eventbrite website. What is expectative to apply AI to the audiology field? Actually, Ricardo, I found something for you. I haven't been focusing on this topic for now. Let me share this link for you, and then you can check out what other experts have been saying about it. It's quite a specific field, but there are like using AI for dentistry and all these sub and major medical specialties. But maybe this link will give you some details about how others want to address this topic. George Cherry, you're right. It's a tool to help better shape our understanding of what already pre-existed. Absolutely right. That's what we're trying to contribute here. I love how you keep the questions flowing in. I love it. I will try to catch up. So the next one is from George. When do you think AI will finally take a strong stance in medical healthcare? George, I think it has happened already. I mean, just 2 years ago, let me share it with you. We published the first paper ever about all the FDA approved, so regulatory approved, the AI-based medical technologies. This was the infographic we included in the paper that got quite famous, and it has been cited for hundreds of times. And we only found these FDA approved AI-based medical technologies by the end of 2020. And then a few, maybe 1.5 years later, the FDA published, the American regulator published their own database, and it has, let me show it to you, more than 500 elements, 500 items, medical devices focusing on AI. This is extraordinary. And it means that and this is just the United States. So imagine at what progress or what stage we are worldwide, where the strictest regulatory agency in the world only accepted more than 500 of them. So medical healthcare has been embracing AI for years, but in very specific niche fields, like for specific tasks in radiology or cardiology or oncology, but not in a general sense. It seems that physicians can use AI for now until ChatGPT arrived, and we will talk about that later. So thank you for the question. Cheyenne Alisha, thank you for the question. You're in the medical, you love the medical field, but have no specific degree in medical. Are there any room to work in medical field in context of AI, and how? It's a hard question to ask, because either you're coming from the technology side, being an AI developer or understanding deep learning, machine learning, so you can help medical people developing these things, or you're coming from the clinical medical side and you can help developers, technologists, inventors create something useful. What chat bot, I guess, not boxed, have been trained with medical data? Tirani K asked the question. MedPalm 2, that's the name, MedPalm 2. Check it out. You will find quite good studies coming from DeepMind and Google. And I think at least it's the medical chatbot with the largest amount of studies behind it for the last couple of months. It's quite a big thing. Wow, you have some pretty interesting and sometimes weird questions. But first, let's start with George's question. George Cherry, do you think, let me share the question with you all. Do you think HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act in the US, will ever allow for the use of people's medical records to allow to create better models to help solve illnesses? I think it has been going on for years. We at the Medical Futurist wrote an article about the intellectual property issue of medical records. Because if you think about it, you go to a doctor and you tell your symptoms, you describe your family history, but the doctor writes everything down that really matters according to the doctor's own judgment, then in legal terms or in theory, the doctor might own what he or she wrote down. The medical record that they wrote down might belong to them IP-wise. Plus, have no doubts that a huge amount of hospitals, healthcare systems have been selling data to third parties. So without knowing you in person, without knowing what country you live in or what healthcare system you belong to, I would bet a big amount of money on that your data has been shared with third parties to contribute to the development of AI-based algorithms. Akshar Chag, I'm not sure if I understand your question. How can a budding doctor medical student align his career by integrating AI in his practice, keeping in future in mind? Please elaborate. Chatty Chess, do you see promise in Google Elixir's visual QA for CXRs, or just a POC at this point? I haven't checked it out for sure, to be honest. So thank you for the tip. Now I can make a note for myself and I will check it out after the live. Thank you for the question. Muhammad Dawood Aslam, how does the geographical bias in healthcare data, primarily from the US and Europe, affect the fairness and generalizability of AI models in global healthcare settings? What a good question to ask. You make a good point that I think I wanted to say the vast majority, but I think in fairness, I have to say almost all of these databases are biased, because the way these companies and medical atlases and all these have been obtaining data, it would mean that they obtain data about European and US based populations. In genetics, in genomics especially, it has been causing quite an issue. The way we can fight it is that first we have to identify such bias. This is what happened with skin checking applications. The applications using AI that can analyze a photo of a skin lesion to predict the risk of that skin lesion being malignant type of issue. And many studies have identified the problem that because of the medical databases and skin databases, featuring and highlighting only people with fairer skin, these algorithms do not perform quite efficiently on photos from people with darker skins. There is a bias built into the system, not because the AI is making biased decisions, but because the database was biased, and that's something the makers of these AI algorithms must keep in mind and try to avoid the issue around biased databases. Elias Manolakos, thank you for the question. Let me share it with all of you. If generative AI learns from all the available data, how we can avoid it being biased, since the data it learns on is biased? I think we just covered it right now. The way we can sort of fight against it, besides what I just described a minute ago, is that we have to have a conscious understanding. I mean, developers of these algorithms must have a high level of understanding about how these algorithms work. So they might be able to identify bias before those even arise, and or constantly fine-tune the algorithm. So it's not just like we develop a generative AI algorithm for a medical task or purpose, we deploy it and that's it. We deploy it, and from that point, it will be able to learn from even more data, but the developers will have to constantly fine-tune how the algorithm works, and that's why it's so hard to regulate these algorithms. How do you regulate something that's going to be a million times different on the first day it's being deployed than what it was a day before when it was regulated? Angel Rodriguez Lockwood. Could you think it's so easy to copy paste a question from YouTube? It's not. Could an AI trained in medical information replace non-interventional fields in medicine? I don't think so. Simply, let's say that there are medical specialties or subspecialties where every decision is based on digital and repetitive tasks. I don't think any exists, but let's pretend that there are some specialties like that. Even in those cases, patients who will work with physicians from those specialties will still need empathy and compassion, and will still need to build a relationship based on trust. And that can only come from physicians and human beings we trust. Even if a ChatGPT can tell me the right words to feel empathy, I wouldn't feel it because I wouldn't trust it, because I know it's not a human being. Therefore, I have no doubts, and that's what we've been writing about on the Medical Futurist channels, that generative AI and AI in general will contribute to a range of tasks and processes, especially those that are repetitive and or data-based, and replace those, because the human supervision, the human skills of physicians are not needed to perform at those tasks. But otherwise, because of the human-human relationship we have as the core value of medicine, we will keep on having physicians in every single specialty. Actually, I have one of my favorite analysis we have ever published, not because I love the analysis that I made, but because of the feedback we've been receiving for that, is this, in which let me share it with you. I just analyzed the impact of technologies on the most popular 20 medical specialties, and I used two axes. One was about how interaction-based versus database, the tasks that specialty entails. And the other one was how creative versus repetitive the tasks are. And based on this, I created 4 groups and I analyzed each group individually. I'm happy to share actually the analysis with you so you can check it out yourself after the stream is over. Okay. Azadet Jabari, of course, thank you for being here. Thank you for the questions, guys. I'm trying to catch up with you. Dennis Esser has a question. From your perspective, what is the best approach to consolidate all the various health data, like from wearables, clinical documents, blood draws, doctors, lab tests, so that AI can crawl it? Well, I understand the implication of your question, but I want to answer it from the perspective of a physician who would have to analyze all these things and go through all these things. And about a week ago, we published an article on medicalfuturist.com in which finally I could talk about the multimodality of large language models. Let me share the article with you. In that sense, I think you can see the whole image in one frame. Let me try to do something about it. No, that's not the plan. I'm sorry, let's keep it there. So what you see here is that there will be multimodal large language models, like an AI that every physician working in a hospital can work with. It will be an interface, like a ChatGPT interface that they can work with. That AI will be able to communicate with the AI being used in the medical record system, or the insurance reports, or the radiology department, or just the regular interfaces doctors and patients are using. And this way, the multimodal large language model could be the final hub or interface that would connect all these AI individual systems and silos together. And I find it extremely exciting to finally have access to all these things. So it would feel like physicians can finally use AI without actually knowing to use each of these AI types. That's why I think multimodality is the thing to look at about the near future. Dr. Z, for radiology AI approvals, is that for specific conditions, for specific anatomical areas, or more generally reading X-rays? Actually, it's a fair question to ask. There are very specific reasons or purposes, that's a better word, purposes, for what medical technologies can get approved, can get regulatory approvals. For example, if you go back to the paper I just shared with you, then I can show you, real life radiology examples. On that infographic, we included the descriptions to each of these. Come on, here it is, right away. What you can see here is that the green color represents radiology. So an AI got regulatory approval for the X-ray of wrist fracture diagnosis, or stroke detection on CT scans, or measuring breast density via mammography, or liver and lung cancer diagnosis on CT and MRI. Not all kinds of cancer diagnosis, but specifically liver and lung cancer on CT and MRI, or interpreting MRI brain images, CT image reconstruction, chest X-ray assessment, specifically pneumothorax, a very specific condition. So that's how these AI algorithms can get regulatory approvals. Next one. I'm trying to choose those questions that are coming from people who I haven't answered questions already. Lydia Janesh, whose opinion will count, the AGIs or the doctors, if they have different opinions about the medical case? That's a nice science fiction-like question to ask, because it implies that we have artificial general intelligence, which we might not even have in the next decades, because it's so hard to technologically and theoretically make it happen. But if your question implies just regular artificial intelligence, then of course I can reply easily that AI doesn't have an opinion. It is just contributing to the final diagnosis. Even if there are fully autonomous AI-based medical technologies, like in ophthalmology, in surgical procedures in ophthalmology, in some radiology departments, but even in those cases, a human being anytime can supervise the process. And there are even some AI algorithms that can sort of automate the process of diagnosing conditions based on, for example, X-rays, but it can flag those cases that it thinks would require human expertise. Alan Pakilis, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for generative AI to offer insight, post-market drug evaluation, and real-world data? I really love it when the question is extremely specific. I thought, based on the first part of your question, that I could finally dive into, multimodal the aspects, or generative AI creating synthetic databases, making medical databases even larger for general AI, so then they would become more efficient. But for post-market drug evaluation and real-world data, I can only have theories that might not even have, existing examples in the background. But maybe I can imagine that ChatGPT-like tools being used by hundreds of millions of people would allow pharma companies to obtain data about side effects, or the way these drugs work, or what happens after a patient started taking a new drug, just like how they can do the same in social media. But in social media, it's more like a manual data extraction process, while in generative AI, it could be done by the generative AI itself. Maybe that's how. Cristiana Oliveira, should these large language models used for medical questions be certified as medical devices itself? Exactly. If the large language model is claimed to perform medical tasks, then of course those must be trained on medical data. But until now, only MedPon2 was claimed to be able to do so, and that was indeed trained on medical data. So ChatGPT, I mean, I see many studies coming out saying that there are many risks about ChatGPT because it hallucinates results and it's not accurate in answering medical questions. Of course not, because it was trained on general information, general websites and Wikipedia and millions of books, but not on medical data. We can only expect good efficiency, high efficiency on medical tasks from a large language models trained on medical data. Andre Darmon had a question, good question. How generative AI might be efficient for rare diseases, as content might be maybe light or biased by other content more present on the same field? Any current examples? I haven't seen examples, but I'm happy to provide a theory here that might work in the future. If for rare disease patients, the issue is that they need the long tail effect of social media to be able to find each other, and also maybe pharma companies, medical device companies developing solutions for them need the long tail effect, so then they can find each other. There are just a few of them, maybe a few hundreds worldwide. Only through social media, all the methods of the internet, they can find each other. Or as part of the hundreds of millions using generative AI for asking general questions about their issues and medical conditions or treatments, they start using them, and the generative AI through an API that the pharma company can, I guess, buy access to, would be able to sort of summarize all these details and get insights. I'm pretty sure that OpenAI and companies like that have been actively thinking about such financial incentives for the future. Catchy Chess, based on the Trump paper, large language models are starting to beat boosted trees for 30-day readmission and mortality predictions. It's interesting to see the progress this fast in medicine. Absolutely. Unfortunately, for employing them in medicine, we still have to apply the rules of evidence-based medicine. So even though an LLM is shown to be 100 times faster or more efficient at such a certain task, we will have to accumulate enough evidence before anyone can start using them in medicine and healthcare. Tyranny, in your opinion, what are the barriers to such tools in clinical practice? As regulatory approval is one hurdle, but in terms of reimbursement and clinical uptake? Well, one is certainly a personal thing, that without a proper understanding about how these technologies work, we simply cannot expect medical professionals to use them efficiently or to use them safely or to understand their own limitations and challenges. So that's a training issue, a medical education issue. That's why we launched the AI in medicine and Introduction to AI in Medicine and Healthcare digital course to help people in the field better understand that. Another one is regulatory approval, definitely. With Eric Topol, the guru of the field, we published a paper a few weeks ago, actually, at the end of the summer, about the imperative for regulatory oversight. And I shared the link in the chat, and maybe it will help you get a better picture about how these generative AI tools could be approved by regulators. Break the mold. How can generative AI be used in telemedicine? Make an economical and personalized diagnosis and treatment at the same time. Maybe in the future, because in theory you're right, these tools can do that, but in practice, I think it's just too far-fetched for the moment. But I want to show you something. Actually, a few days ago, I tried a new AI tool, a new generative AI tool, with which I could finally talk Spanish. I've been learning Spanish for some time, and it even has a lip sync built in. Check out this LinkedIn link. I just shared a short video. I recorded an English video about talking about generative AI, and it not only translated the video into Spanish, but it makes me look like I am speaking in Spanish. The lip sync is there. I think that's how. So I mean, that's a first step. A generative AI could break the language barriers for telemedical visits. Hello from Vietnam. Nice to meet you. Ina Kukreya. Hello. How would generative AI be useful in synthetic data arm for clinical trials or in rare diseases, clinical genomics data, and so on? I think I just touched upon it a few minutes ago that just like how GANs, generative adversarial networks, have been used to improve the quality and quantity of medical databases used by AI companies to develop their algorithms on. I think quite similarly to that, generative AI could contribute to creating more data or making the database simply more diverse by using the same sample data, but by looking into structures and patterns, it could create something similar, thus improving the size and maybe even the quality of data. Rocket Carpenter. It's a good question. Do you know of any current instances where generative AI is used for clinical note generation? I think that's exactly what Microsoft's Nuance announced like a month ago, that they would include such a voice-to-text medical record making tool into their workflow. So if you look for Nuance and generative AI, you will find a good example about that. Elias Manolakos asks a very timely question. As medical large language models require huge amounts of medical data to be trained, how this can happen without violating patient privacy? No single organization has this amount. You're absolutely right. And that's why I've been saying for so many years that it's impossible to keep patients' privacy intact while also enjoying the benefits of AI. That's just physically impossible. The right question we have to ask ourselves about this is how much of our privacy we are willing to give up in exchange for a chance for a longer and healthier life. And as long as I'm the one making the decision for myself and not my government or, pharma company or health insurance company, ethically, I should be fine with that. Scott McCaig, who pays for a generative AI solution that delivers a patient-specific treatment plan and who accepts the liability for the plan? Let's keep it as practical as possible. As a physician myself, I decide to use ChatGPT. I pay for that because it saves me a lot of time and effort every single day. And I have to be the one accepting the liability for the plan because I am the physician making the decision at the end of the day. I used a generative AI tool to contribute to that, but I also used a stethoscope to measure to listen to your cardiac and lung sounds. I checked the CT scan from the radiology department and I checked your family history. So it's still me that can synthesize all these flows of data, but generative AI might become one of, if not the most useful source of data in that workflow. Break them all, of course. It's quite easy to find my email address online. Please feel free to ask any questions you might have. Bob Moraine, how can AI help regular patients make sure their problems are diagnosed properly? I'm not sure what you mean by regular patients, but I guess what your question implies is that what if a patient uses ChatGPT and how the patient can make sure that the diagnosis, the treatment plan, the lifestyle insights they receive from ChatGPT would be correct, right? There's no way for that. That's why the use of every single advanced technology must start, I think, with forming a relationship with a medical professional and creating a new medical team that consists of patients and physicians. And the physician would be the person who would have to justify the medical quality of the information they receive from large language models. Amber Smith, yes, this live Q&A will be archived as the moment we finish it in 25 minutes. You will find the link on the Medical Futurist YouTube channel under live. All my live Q&As are published there. Vaida H has a very interesting question. I'm not sure if I know the answer for that. How would generative AI help in creating apps with algorithms for precision medicine tools? I think in that sense, generative AI is not different from regular AI. We just have to use machine learning to improve the efficiency of decisions we can make while creating such apps. But the way generative AI can contribute to that is by creating an interface between the app, the technology, and patients, maybe even physicians who want to use the technology. This is the bridge that we have been missing in the AI era. And this is why I think the arrival of ChatGPT has been a paradigm shift. All right, next one. The question is coming from Andre Darmon. Thank you for that. How to ensure correct use of AI by physicians? What kind of education could we trigger for various kinds of doctors? Well, it's one of my favorite topics of all. And that's why we published not so long ago, I shared the link in the chat, a short guide to AI for medical professionals. And now what they need is called prompt engineering. It's not just what physicians need, but if anyone wants to get better at using generative AI, they need to get better at prompt engineering. I've spent during the summer, I think, weeks trying to improve my prompt engineering skills, and it's something you should do too, unless you have nothing to do with generative AI. I just shared a preprint paper I submitted to Journal of Medical Internet Research with 10 practical skills and suggestions about improving prompt engineering. All right. As clinicians, okay, as the question is coming from Richard Deacon, as a clinician would like to get involved with AI in primary care projects, not obvious where to turn. I think the paper I just shared should be a good start because that's what we designed to help everyone, especially medical professionals, get a crystal clear image, like a package of information about AI, and that's everyone needs to know on that topic. Okay, Ganyu Adam had this question. I love answering every single time on this channel. Can AI ever replace doctors and nurses in hospitals? I would bet anything on the fact that AI will not replace medical professionals, but medical professionals that use AI will replace medical professionals that do not use AI. That's the simplest, rule of thumb I can put on the table here. For example, radiologists, I think if there's a standard, like a common radiologist today that has to go through like 30 scans a day, I don't want my 25th scan to be his or her. So I want my radiologist to only focus on tasks that require their human expertise and vision and everything. So what if future radiologists will work on developing even better AI algorithms that can diagnose even better patients through radiology images? So they will still work as a radiologist, but the vast majority of their job, of their tasks every day, will entail things about developing AI that would essentially replace them. But as you can see, it won't replace them. But the medical specialty itself will change a lot. That's how I see the future of these specialties. All right. Joan Corney Prat had this question. How ChatGPT can benefit patient empowerment? I think ePatient Dave, the most empowered inpatient in the world I've been following and learning from for many years, he said it a few days ago that just like how Dr. Google has been contributing to patient empowerment, Dr. ChatGPT can do the same. It has its own risks and challenges, but it's still useful if it's being used to improve the doctor-patient relationship. If a patient goes to a physician and the patient tells the physician that, I found this and that on Google and I know that I need these drugs and this is my diagnosis, that doesn't lead anywhere. But if a patient raises the issue that, of course, he or she would love to contribute to his or her care and they found this piece of information, let's discuss it, let's help out, then just Googling health information would help form a better doctor-patient relationship. The same goes for Dr. ChatGPT, as they call it, or using generative AI for medical tasks. Break the mold. Nobody can tell if a large language model or natural language processing would be the right thing for you to use in your quest to find a solution for what you described. It's impossible to describe it in just 2 lines. Summer Steam Camp, I would love to hear more about your thoughts on how AI can alter upcoming technology, especially related to post-acute care. How AI can alter upcoming technologies? Well, maybe AI can contribute to the that's what you mean, that AI can contribute to the development of devices. Maybe because AI can access, bigger amounts of data and make more like personalized decisions. Or, for example, I'm just thinking out loud here. As a developer, I come up with an idea about a digital health service, but I didn't want to deploy it yet because there was no good interface through which my users, my patients, would be able to analyze the data or interact with the data. But now, because of ChatGPT, I can provide the interface, and I have an AI working on the analysis in the background, but finally patients can contribute, can communicate and interact with the databases. Well, in that sense, AI can contribute to the upcoming advanced medical technologies. Elias Manolakos has another question. Let me share it with you. Are there currently generative AI tools that can assist clinicians in diagnosis and explain their reasoning? MedPalm 2, the one managed by Google and DeepMind, I think has been doing that. And it can also reason, because like every generative AI tool, you can ask a question, you can ask it to reason, and it will try to predict the sequence of tokens in the answer, which would look like reasoning to us, but it would just keep on doing its job, predicting the sequence of tokens. So in a sense, MedPalm 2 would be an example here. AKR has an interesting question here. Do you think the FDA will adapt and modernize their methodologies to become more efficient, moving away from the slower and more archaic methods currently used for drug approval? It's never a good position to defend a regulatory authority, but I think the FDA is a good example in being in the forefront of innovation. And if you look at the de novo pathway for the last couple of years, decades actually, because it has been around for more than 2 decades now, the de novo pathway, which is a regulatory pathway designed to create new categories of medical devices, could be the solution for the FDA to be able to regulate even generative AI-based medical technologies. The one area where I still want to see something insightful coming out from the FDA would be to hear them comment on how to regulate adaptive algorithms that change with every decision they make. So essentially, the technology you regulate and deploy into practice would be different from the moment it would get deployed, and that's something unprecedented in the history of regulations. Bob Maron, in other words, are you aware if AI has shown progress in providing better solutions to tough medical issues? No. But the generative AI era, which is less than 1 year old, has definitely been providing more efficient answers to medical cases and differential diagnosis than any AI chatbot before it. That's what I would like to put out on the table. Divya Markanda, thank you for sharing that comment. Ina Kukreya, do you think AI should be introduced for medical graduates? Absolutely. I've been teaching medical students about AI for years at my own medical school, and that's why we also launched an AI course in digital format, so then medical students around the world would get access to it. How does generative AI changes primary care? It's a good question to ask, a hard question to answer, because it's very general. I think just like how it would change every medical specialty, the way patients would be able to not only find health information, Google has been amazing at that, but to interact with health information, to interact with medical data. So imagine that 2 years ago, I went to a primary care physician and I told my amazing primary care physician that, well, I use the sleep sensor and a smartwatch connected to each other, and here is my sleep data. Can you give me some insights about how to improve my sleep? Now, instead of that, I can just upload the data to ChatGPT or other tools. I can ask very specific questions and then arrive at the next meeting with really insightful, really specific questions that will require a higher level of technical understanding from the primary care physician. So generative AI in that sense would have a bigger impact on the doctor-patient relationship than on something technological in the background. Bob, yes, if a patient is struggling with a diagnosis such as fibromyalgia, how could they find a better solution with AI? In that sense, I don't think they could. If you mentioned something, a condition where obtaining vital signs or health parameters could contribute to a better understanding of the condition or better managing the disease, for example, diabetes, then AI definitely has a place in that. But just to find information, it's not better than using Google. It's even worse because it cannot access information after November 2021. Brady Mode, could you please suggest some new generative AI-enabled telemedicine apps or software? I haven't come across any. I know about a few that we checked out about, that they started deploying generative AI in their services. Let me share the link with you. 16 healthcare companies that already deployed generative AI. Here it is. Ashwat Chandrasekhar, do you think federated learning techniques will play a role in training and updating the language models constantly in the future? I think federated learning plays a bigger role in trying to ensure the privacy of patient data. At least, for us people in healthcare, I don't care about other industries and how federated learning could contribute to those fields. But the way federated learning seems to be useful is that we can still build AI algorithms on huge amounts of databases, but the sub-databases below that huge database technically would remain on the hospital's physical servers. So it would be impossible for patient data to be breached, but we could still build AI algorithms using huge amounts of data. I think that's how federated learning has a place in this picture. Angel Rodriguez Lockwood, I haven't seen generative AI being used to create meta-analysis for medical decisions simply because we are still too early in the process. Maybe after a few years, you will see meta-analysis analyzing different sources or forms of generative AI contributing to differential diagnosis. But for now, I have only seen a few studies of algorithms like MedPalm2, and I think Bard is also having a medical alternative coming out soon, but that's all for now. Dwight Pont, the ability and willingness of healthcare to embrace change is woefully lacking, of course. How do you see Gen AI making inroads in healthcare soon? It's a very good question to ask. Thank you for asking that, and we haven't covered it yet. The question to me helps raise an important issue I like to come back from time to time, which is that even though we see an influx of advanced technologies in healthcare, it's still a cultural transformation. Because if you put all these amazing technologies in a hospital right now, the quality of care would not change significantly even a year from that point, because people work in the system and those people, as you mentioned, don't like to change that much. Generative AI is definitely different in a sense compared to like digital health devices or the AI before it, because now, before AI was only accessible to a handful of people, researchers, developers, but now hundreds of millions started using generative AI on a daily basis, if not for medical purposes, then for, general life purposes. And that means that those physicians who might have been reluctant to using AI in other parts of their jobs, now they are using it for, these maybe non-medical purposes. And that definitely helps adopt the technology in a better way. But we need better regulations to do that, otherwise they won't be able to deploy it in practice. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm trying to catch up with all the questions left here. Laurent Wheeler had this question: how do you see AI being incorporated into health coaching? Will AI chat be the coach or a tool for human practitioners? Absolutely. I mean, that's where generative AI can contribute the most to healthcare. That a physician, maybe if I have a chronic condition and I meet physicians a few times every year, maybe it's a few hours every year. And the rest of the time, I'm alone with my decisions, with millions of lifestyle decisions to better manage that disease. But if I have a generative AI tool I can ask millions of questions to, then it would be able to act like a coach. It won't be efficient all the time. Sometimes it will hallucinate results, but I have to say, it's still better than nothing, or still better than just looking for the same questions as search queries on Google and finding someone who wrote about these things or haven't. So in that sense, ChatGPT has a potential to act like a health coach for people. Okay, next one. Chinta Ramakrishna had this question. How does ChatGPT help patients to get answers from his health-related issues by looking at medical records? Well, you can even upload summaries or medical records to ChatGPT-like tools and ask very specific questions about it. The thing I've been doing recently is that I sort of describe the setting, the challenge I faced, like in my research, to ChatGPT, and then I ask it to ask me 10 questions to make sure that it gets enough information about me. So then after that, those 10 questions, I can ask my own questions. We can start working together. And maybe patients will do the same. They don't understand something in their medical records or discharge summaries, discharge notes, and they upload a discharge note and ask ChatGPT to translate it without using any jargon. And then, of course, it has been shown ChatGPT can do that easily. Wow, okay, very good. Hard and long questions keep coming in. How would AI be accurately evaluated to keep up to standards with new discoveries published each month and year? Coming from Fernando Acosta. Well, that's the promise of AI-based tools, that human beings cannot catch up with all these new discoveries coming out every year. 34 million papers you can find on PubMed.com, and about 1 or 2 million papers and studies come out every year. Human beings cannot catch up with that, but AI has the possibility to do so through its amazing analytical prowess. Elias Manolakos, do you see in the near future the development of patient-level digital twins trained based on personal health data that could interact in intelligent ways with physicians on behalf of the patient? Yes, for the first half of your question, and no for the second part. That's just too far-fetched for me. And even though the first part of just creating digital twins, so then physicians don't have to test the heart medication on me as a human being, but they can test it on my digital twin to see the potential side effects. That is scientifically doable and feasible, but you don't see many practical examples about it yet. I've seen Siemens Healthineers investing a lot of money into digital twins, but again, there are studies and articles about the possibilities of this technology, but I haven't tried one, for example, for myself, even though I did have a digital twin in a video form, but I would love to use a service through which I can test drugs on that digital twin of myself and not on me personally. All right. Is explainability the holy grail or a false hope? How truly explainable are most day-to-day clinical decisions? From Tosif Merali. I thought you would ask about the explainability of AI, because in that sense, I would have said that you are right. It's not explainable totally because of the black box paradox that not even sometimes the developers of AI understand how the AI makes such great decisions. Plus, there is a other level of the black box paradox that if you want AI not to, get online and become artificial general intelligence, meaning becoming conscious, then we have to keep it in a box. But then how can we look into the box to see how it's progressing? Because then it will come out. So for that, we cannot explain everything about generative AI, but I do believe, because we published this paper I shared with you twice today, that it's possible to provide a minimal package of understanding that would help everyone gain a scientific level, trust level high enough that would allow them to use the technology. The same goes for MRI machines. Most doctors don't know how it works in scientific terms, but they have a scientific understanding strong enough about the technology that they know that it won't cause harm to their patients. There is a good question from Chris Morris. Is there a voice command interaction for ChatGPT? It's a good question because OpenAI announced it less than 2 days ago that there would be, in less than 2 weeks, there would be a voice interaction with ChatGPT. Break the mode, it's Berci, my name, Berci, BERCI, at medicalfuturist.com. That's my email address. All right. I think we had a similar question before, and this one is so long it won't even fit my screen. The current model suggests that doctors will be assisted by the analysis made by AI, meaning that doctors will have the final say and take responsibility for medical decisions. Once AI is performing at a high level, will doctors still take the risk of contradicting the AI model, knowing that they could be subject to legal action by patients if the AI actually was correct? Very good question to ask. I wish, I mean, I don't want to be, I don't want to ridicule the question, the importance the question implies, but I wish we were at that stage in AI development, that there would be an issue whether AI would perform at such a high level that doctors would have fears about contradicting it. Let's get there in like 1 or 2 decades, and then let's deal with the legal issues, because getting there means we can cure billions, hundreds of millions of patients, but we can definitely make their lives better for billions of patients because of that tool alone. And I think such legal issues that might arise because of that would be diminished or not even comparable to what the technology could actually bring to practice. We have time for about 1 or 2 last questions. Here is one from Lucy Hopp. What are the most potentially impactful applications of generative AI in the near term? Which are the most potentially overlooked? I would put multimodal large language models into both of these categories. I think the multimodality aspect is overlooked. Everyone is excited about ChatGPT, being able to discuss things with an online AI chatbot. But when you can upload images to analyze or a full video and ask questions about the video, you can upload a video of a physical rehabilitation process of a patient and ask for feedback from a physician. You can upload the cough recordings into ChatGPT and ask to use vocal biomarkers to diagnose it. So when you can interact between data formats, again, text, image, sound, video, and full documents, that's going to be the holy grail of the whole AI revolution. So I think this is all for now. I just wanted to share with you 2 last things, like what I did in the beginning. Just in case you are interested in that, here is the generative AI survey we did with 400 healthcare leaders that you can download for free on leanpub.com. Then during the summer, we published this quite extensive generative AI executive summary, everything you need to know about the medical and healthcare aspects of generative AI. And as usual, the most important thing, we have been having almost 1,000 users and students on the digital course we launched this year, Introduction to Artificial Intelligence in Medicine and Healthcare. I hope you will check it out. And if you want, just please enroll in this course. We worked so much on each of these, the course, the executive summaries, and everything else. So now, what a session it was. Thank you so much for being here with me and asking all these really amazing, insightful questions. I hope you had a good time and that you will keep on watching us at the Medical Futurist. Please subscribe on the Medical Futurist YouTube channel. We are trying to get to 100,000 subscriptions in the coming months. I hope you will join us for that. You can also join us on patreon.com/the Medical Futurist to support what we do. So the team of the Medical Futurist, we are almost 20 now. We can keep on providing a range of free content on a range of channels, from YouTube to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, patreon.com, executive summaries, and everything else along the spectrum. So we can help people better understand the context about AI, generative AI, digital health, all these exciting yet risky changes that we witness every day in medicine and healthcare. So for those that could take part in the live Q&A session and ask questions, thank you so much for being here with me. This is the new season for the Medical Futurist. So from now on, the plan is that every 3 weeks we will have a live Q&A sessions focusing on different very exciting topics, sometimes with an exciting guest. But until now, please check out medicalfuturist.com. Please subscribe to the Medical Futurist YouTube channel. And simply have an excellent day. Let's keep on using generative AI. Let's get better at prompt engineering to see how we can exploit this technology for the benefits of patients. Thank you again and have a nice day. Bye.